Well, what a weekend it was. And now we turn our attention to the schedule release coming up here shortly. It's time for another edition of Jonesing for Football. I'm in Dallas. I'm Bill Jones. Young Cody Winstead is in the Super Bowl winning city of Philadelphia with his Emmy Award over his right shoulder, Patrick Mahomes bobblehead over his left, and he is lamenting the fact that the Cowboys kicked the Eagles' rear in the NFL Draft 2025. Right, young Cody?
Not so fast, my friend, as the great Lee Corso used to say, Bill Jones. Hey, good to be with you as always. Draft time is Howie time. That's just how it works. Howie had another great draft for the Eagles. He can pick in the top 10, he can pick in the 20s, he can pick at 32. Howie just always works his magic when it comes to the NFL draft.
I haven't seen, has Pro Football Focus, your favorite entity, come up with some draft grades?
Our favorite Pro Football Focus. We both are PFF fans, Bill Jones. Trust me, it was really good. If you missed their draft grade of the Eagles, it was pretty good.
Do you know what it was?
Yeah, A, Bill
What was the
Jones.
Cowboy grade?
I'm not sure on that. I think it
I
was.
think I saw an A. I think I
Okay.
saw an A from Pro Football Focus on the Cowboys.
Well, that would make sense. PFF, we both love it, so it would make sense that
Right.
both of our teams got A's.
It doesn't matter though what PFF says. It's what JFF says. Jonesing for football, right?
I like what you did there. I thought you were going to go. It only matters what the big green notebook says, and
Yeah,
that
that too.
I would agree. And JFF, I like that. Bill Jones, it was a great draft. Today we're going to recap it with some of our favorite drafts. But before we do that, I want to go through some of the numbers from the weekend, if you don't mind. First of all, this was interesting. The TV ratings were huge, Bill Jones. Over 20 million people watched the draft on Thursday and Friday alone. Day one was up 11%. Day two was up 40% from the year before. And now some numbers that'll help you kind of summarize the draft that was. We had 257 players selected. We had a position high 33 linebackers. We had a school high 14 Buckeyes. You know, I had to work that in. 13 quarterbacks, 10 players named Jalen, two new Browns quarterbacks, and of course, one big green notebook here to break it all down, Mr. Jones. So I want to ask you about a team that you liked their draft this weekend. Give us one that stuck out.
I'll give you a team. How about the Texas Longhorns draft? The Texas Longhorns had, I think, 12 players drafted. That shows you how far they have come in the last decade. Remember, I think it was around 2014. I don't recall the exact year where they had no players drafted. I know I was big that year on Jackson Jeffcoat that he should be. And by the way, and he was in the big green notebook, Jackson Jeffcoat out of Plato West High School, the son of former Cowboys first round draft pick Jim Jeffcoat. He wound up landing in Seattle and then going to Washington and intercepted a Tony Romo pass at one time in his career before doing some great things in the Canadian Football League. But that shows you how far the Texas program has come in the last decade. I think they were maybe tied for third in the number of players.
Alone in third. Ohio State 14, Georgia 13, Texas 12. There's your top three schools.
Okay, very good. And a lot of people here disappointed that a Texas Longhorn did not become a Dallas Cowboy, as a lot of people were thinking that the Cowboys should take Matthew Golden, the wide receiver, who runs a 4.29, but instead he went to the green and gold of the Green Bay Packers 10 picks later at number 22. So you asked me which draft classes that I like. I'm going to give you three, and you're going to come up with three, right? Is that how we're going to
Yes,
do
sir.
this? So I'm going to start with maybe not your, but my Dallas Cowboys. Although the Cowboys are your team, right?
They are, yes, sir.
despite the fact you live in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's not easy, but somehow I make it work.
I love the first round pick. Well, first off, let me just say this. I loved that, and I had an opportunity to sit down with Brian Schottenheimer a week before the draft and just talk with him about how he's been involved in the entire draft process from the time he was hired on January 24th until the first day of the draft on April 24th. He hit the ground running. He hired an almost entirely new coaching staff, some of whom came from the college ranks. So they're very familiar with these college players. He had his entire coaching staff go to Indianapolis, and it was not only to study prospects, but it was a great team building, team bonding experience where they got a lot of work done. Not just on draft prospects, but putting things together going forward. He went on the road. He locked arms, basically, along with Matt Eberflus, his defensive coordinator, defensive line coach Aaron Whitecotton, on a 3 college campus tour, 3 straight pro days to Columbus, Ohio, Ohio State, and
I
then,
saw him there.
yep, and then to Texas A&M. They got on their Jerry's plane and flew to College Station and Texas A&M, and then the next day they were at Oxford, Mississippi at Ole Miss. What was a common bond between those 3 stops? Well, obviously, Ohio State had draft prospects at every position, but look at those defensive linemen that they had. Look at Texas A&M, and on their defensive line, they had 3 draftable players: Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton and Shamar Turner down there. And then you went to Ole Miss, and they had just about as many prospects, especially on the defensive line, as anywhere, including Walter Nolan and others. Um, so I think you probably got a pretty good read just on where they went on their pro day tour, what they were kind of looking for, and who accompanied the head coach on that, the defensive line coach and the defensive coordinator. You got an idea what they were looking for in this draft. But they had so many needs, and right out of the chute, Tyler Booker, the offensive guard from Alabama, and a lot of people say you can't draft an offensive guard with the 12th pick in the draft, as Cody shakes his head over there. But I think in this particular case, especially when you consider who it is they're drafting and how well it worked 11 years ago in 2014 with a future Hall of Famer, the number 16 pick, Zach Martin, who just happened to retire a month earlier. It was and even though I in my mock draft had them trading down and taking Emeka Ibuka, who I really loved, the more I started thinking about it leading up, I did that a week before the draft, and once I got to draft day, I remember I went back and looked at my notes on Tyler Booker because I kind of put aside offensive guard thinking, well, trying to read the mind of the Cowboys and knowing where Schottenheimer had gone and how much emphasis they had put on defensive linemen and wide receivers and stuff. And knowing the need, and with running backs, they had all the top running backs come in as well on their visits. But they did have all the offensive linemen come in as well, including Tyler Booker. But I thought, okay, well, they've signed Sadiq Charles, who started 10 games 2 years ago. They've tried, they like what they saw from Brock Hoffman. They have so many needs. All right, maybe they're gonna get an offensive lineman in the 3rd round or something like that. But then the more I looked at it, the more I thought, and when you look at other teams too, the impactful offensive linemen who you want to come in and play immediately as a rookie, you got to get them early. And I don't care whether it's a tackle or a guard. If you want this guy to fill that big of a hole on that offensive line, you got to get him in the 1st or 2nd round. And by the time they drafted, I was fully on board with Tyler Booker as the pick, and sure enough, that's who they came up with.
I love Booker. I tried to say during our Dallas Dream Draft pod we did a couple weeks ago, yes, they have a ton of needs. We all know that. But none of it really matters if the offensive line isn't fixed. And what I was sticking to was the Cowboys had success over the last 10 years when they had 3 or 4 great offensive linemen. And the issue that the reason that they've struggled over the last year or so is now they only have one. Tyler Smith is the only above average, I think, offensive line. And you made the point that Cooper Beebe will probably get there. And I think that's probably true. I don't think he's there yet, but hopefully he does. And so you look at to have that interior shirt up, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, Tyler Booker. If you could have all three of those as good or great players, now you're cooking and the offense will start to move again.
Especially when you consider who their biggest rival is in the NFC East and the Super Bowl champion Eagles and what they have in the interior of their offensive line. It's
Yep.
an imperative that they be as strong as they can be up the middle. They got to be as strong as they can be on the tackle as well. And the biggest question mark going into this season, just like it was last season, is going to be Tyler Guyton at left tackle. So anyway, Booker in the first round, I think, and judging by the A grade that the PFF of the world are giving them, I think people are in agreement on that. I like Donovan Ezaraku in the second round, the edge rusher from Boston College, who went 44th. I think they probably had a late first, early second grade on him. They come back and get a cornerback from East Carolina in the third round who is coming off an ACL surgery. He's probably going to be on PUP to start training camp. They are hopeful. Dr. Dan Cooper, the Cowboys team doctor, did the surgery, so they know what they, as well as anyone, what it entailed. You know, not all ACL injuries are the same, and they feel confident he's going to be playing early in the season. They're having said all that. I like the fact that they've got a clean bill of health and they don't care that, okay, he may be on PUP to start the season. They're still taking the best player available at that point. And they got to understand that they got to go out and find a cornerback on the free agent market or in a trade. Uh, they traded for Kyer Elam, but who knows what he's going to be like.
Yep.
As a former first round draft pick, he got beat out by Christian Benford in Buffalo. And so maybe since he didn't win that spot, maybe he didn't get the opportunity that he's going to get here, but he's definitely going to get an opportunity here with Trayvon Diggs' injury issues. Didn't get the wide receiver, so now they got to go out and look for an Amari Cooper or a Keenan Allen or a trade, and they know that. And they got a running back in the fifth round in Jaden Blue, who brings speed to their backfield, who is basically at 195 pounds running a 4.35. He's a third down back. And so you pair him for now with Javonte Williams, and Miles Sanders would be the third guy with Deuce Vaughn. And that's what they got at running back. So we'll see what happens. And hopefully an improved offensive line will help the run game.
My question goes to that wide receiver position, Bill Jones, because you had them in your Dallas Dream Draft taking Emeka Egbuka, a wide receiver, with the first pick, trading back and going wide receiver. Everybody knew that the Cowboys needed a wide receiver. A lot of people had a wide receiver mocked to them. Yet when I look at the 9 picks, there's no wide receivers. What is the plan there? Because it just looks like, did they not think that was a need? What do we know about the wide receiver position?
Oh, they definitely thought it was a need. That's why they brought Tet McMillan and Matthew Golden and Emeka Egbuka and Luther Burden on their 30 visits to the Star. But they also know what's available elsewhere, whether it be in a trade now or in free agency. You know, depending, the other thing that can happen here after the draft, teams can let go receivers. Now, obviously, if their team's letting go a receiver, then he's likely not the guy that you want to be your number 2 receiver
Thank
coming
you.
in.
Yeah.
But I think Amari Cooper is the one that is the obvious guy that they probably are looking at right now. One of the things that I would be concerned about on Cooper is it's not the same situation here now as what it was when he left, because he will not be, if they sign him, he would not be the lead dog like he was prior to that. And I think that's one of the main reasons that they let him go or traded him back 4 years ago, was because it was going to be CeeDee Lamb's room now. And for CeeDee to grow into the number 1 receiver it wasn't going to happen personality-wise in that room with Amari Cooper. But now if Cooper is good and if CD and Dak feel like it's a good fit as well, I think that the Cowboys are definitely pursuing that this week, and we'll see what happens, whether it's now or a month from now.
Where I think they made a mistake was not only do they need a second wide receiver, we all recognize that. I think you could make the argument they needed a third wide receiver too, because behind CD you're looking at Jonathan Mingo. I mean, he is.
Jalen Tolbert is right now the number 2.
Yeah, I understand. I'm saying they don't have a slot guy either, or like a quick guy. Like we all love Jalen Noel, who ended
KaVontae
up going.
Turpin. KaVontae Turpin is the guy that it's going to be very interesting how they use him on offense now, because now it's Schottenheimer calling the plays, and McCarthy gave lip service to it that he was going to have him more involved. And as it turns out, last season he had 31 catches for 420 yards and 2 touchdowns. So will KaVontae Turpin be that guy? We shall see. The money says he will have a more involved role on offense when you make the decision that you're paying him 3 years, $18 million. You got the contract extension. That tells you that the plan is that Turpin's going to be more involved on offense. So right now, I would think if they're lining up to play a game right now, you're looking at CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, and KaVontae Turpin as being your top 3. They hope that Jonathan Mingo can improve to the status that they had him graded coming out. I don't know that how much hope they have in that, but he does now have a full off season in the program to see. They have they also like their 6th round draft pick from last year, Ryan Flanoy, who got an opportunity late in the season last year. And so we'll see where he develops as well. But yeah, I mean, and then they got Paris Campbell as a veteran guy that they signed. But there's still a gaping hole where Brandon Cooks left as that number 2 receiver. And so we'll see what happens with it. But I'm just telling you, that's kind of the depth chart of what they're looking at right now at the receiver position.
Yeah, and I agree. Listen, I was yelling the entire season in 24 that KaVontae Turpin needs more snaps. The guy can play wide receiver. The problem was he only played 315 offensive snaps last year, 27% of the offensive snaps, and some of those were in at running back, or they moved them all around. So I mean, we'll see if he's going to line up 70% of the time in the slot. My point is, like Jalen Noel, we all love Jalen Noel in the 3rd round. Like that would have been a big filled a big hole for this team as well. They clearly need a wide receiver too. They don't have it yet. Maybe they sign that, but they also, I think, clearly need a wide receiver 3, and then maybe Turpin's your utility guy that's a 4. But anyway, that I just feel like this is the 2nd straight year, Bill Jones, that the Cowboys had a huge obvious weakness at a position. This year it was wide receiver. Last year was running back. And we talked about this on the last pod. You had them going with Travion Henderson in the 2nd round in your draft. This year, they wait till the 5th round and don't draft Jaden Blue. He's, like you said, he's a 3rd running back, not a lead back. So they're going to go into the year with Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, and Jaden Blue. It's like, is that good enough? That just seems like
they picked at 44 and they picked at 44 and Travion Henderson, who, by the way, my understanding is they had Quinshon Judkins ranked ahead of Travion Henderson, but I think they would have taken either one of those backs at 44, but they weren't there at 44. So what are you going to do? You're going to take your 3rd round draft pick in the 2nd round. Bashal Tutin was their other guy that they considered in the 3rd round, and they decided to go with a cornerback, which might have been the biggest need they had in the entire draft going in, was the cornerback position. And so they opted to go cornerback there with Savon Ravel. And so Tutin went early 4th round. But so now, and they don't have a 4th round pick. They traded, and so they took their a running back, the best one that they thought was on the board, at 149 early in the fifth round, and then they traded up to take a linebacker, which is also another need on this team, in a 20-year-old player from Florida, Shamar James. But you just can't, you don't have enough picks. They don't have enough picks to satisfy all those needs with top 100 players. And in fact, many of the players, I'd say probably 90% of the players they brought in for 30 visits, they were gone by the time they picked at 44. So
Yeah.
there
Again,
you
I'll give
go.
you a third rounder. Like you liked Caleb Johnson. He
I
went in
did.
the third round.
They
He went.
apparently didn't like him. So that's, I mean, they've got much more knowledge than I do about these players. Uh, I'm just basing on what I see on film, and they've got a lot more knowledge than any of us do about all these players. And it's like, it's some people like vanilla ice cream, some like chocolate. I would have loved to have seen them get Caleb Johnson, but I also like what they did with that was the beauty. In a way, you can look at it glass half full, glass half empty. But one of the beauties of this draft is they had position needs all across the board. So as long as they took the best player available at those positions of need, I was good with whatever decision they made, and I don't think they reached on anybody really.
Anything else we need to discuss about the Cowboys, Mr. Jones?
I think we have covered it.
I would agree. All right. I'll start with a team that earned an A from my draft grades, Bill Jones. And stop me if you've heard this before. It's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Stop!
Howie.
Stop! Stop!
Yeah, thank you. You've heard it before. Howie Roseman once again playing chess while those other jokers are playing checkers. My favorite thing about Howie's draft strategy, Bill Jones, he doesn't have just one philosophy. Some years he makes a ton of trades. This year, not quite as many, just 5 total trades, including trading up one spot in the first round from 32 to 31 to land Jihad Campbell, who's a local product from this area. Now, Mr. Jones, do me a favor. Please locate Campbell in the Big Green Notebook, if you wouldn't mind, because I want to ask you about him in a second. While you're doing that, let me tell you about the Alabama linebacker, 6'3", 235, an off-ball backer, getting 82% of his snaps in the box last year. Has the ability, like Micah Parsons, to rush the passer from the edge. The two things I liked about his game, number one, a monster when playing downhill. And the second, an elite level QB spy with tremendous closing speed. Pairing him up with Defensive Player of the Year finalist Zach Bond and the currently injured Nakobe Dean gives Philly one of the best linebacking cores in the league. All right, Mr. Jones, do you have your Campbell page up?
Yes. Jihad
What
Campbell. He turned
what
21 on February 24th. What else would you like to know about him?
what word is starred or bolded or highlighted next to Campbell's name? Do you have anything?
I have in all caps, stud! Exclamation point.
Thank you,
All,
Mr. Jones.
all caps, loves FB, loves
Love it.
football,
There you go. Uh,
sharp, serious minded, wants to be a Swiss Army knife. I want to do it all. Stand up linebacker, first and second down, put me on the edge. Uh, Moved to off-ball linebacker when he came to Alabama because you got Dallas Thomas and Will Anderson there, and they needed an off-ball linebacker instead of an edge rusher. Physicality, explosive. Um, what else do I have there? A
no,
couple extras.
I love the assessment. See,
Played in
perfect
his bowl game. How about that? This is how much he loves football. Okay,
shocker.
he's turning pro. He knows he's turning pro. He's got the disappointment they didn't make the college football playoff, so they're playing Michigan in a bowl game, and everyone else who's going to be a first-round draft pick opts out, of course. Well, not Jihad Campbell. He played in the bowl game.
There
That's how
you
much
go.
he loves football.
There you go. That's why most people had him as a top 15 pick, Mr. Jones, and the Birds stole him at 31. Some of the other notable picks for Philly in the second round, Andrew Makuba, a safety from Texas, fills the need after trading CJ GJ to Houston, a 4-year starter. Makuba transferred from Clemson, played 1 year with the Longhorns, top 5 in FBS. with 5 picks last year. Great instincts always helps him be around the ball. They also got one of my guys in the 4th round, Ty Robinson, the D tackle from Nebraska. I talked about him in our late round Gems pod last week. Quick and strong, will be a nice fit alongside Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis on the interior of that D line. Boston College center Drew Kendall, they got him in the 5th. PFF loves him. JFF loves him. 4th lowest pressure rate amongst interior linemen. Also, good depth behind Cam Jurgens, who just got an extension last week. And finally, in the 5th round, another hometown kid, Kyle McCord, the quarterback, started at Ohio State, then transferred to Syracuse. I'm not sure if anyone was paying attention, but he finished 10th in the Heisman at Syracuse this year. I really like Kyle McCord, great thrower of the football, pushes the ball down the field. Everyone here thinks Tanner McKee is the backup quarterback. We'll see. I actually think McCord will challenge him for QB2. So once again, Howie Roseman proved he is the best GM in the league. Another terrific group of talent headed here to Philly.
Okay, so they're going to win it again, right?
I would say they're the favorites, Bill Jones.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see if this Cowboys team that still has so many holes to fill in the eyes of young Cody can challenge the Eagles.
A team that has 0 holes to fill.
There you go.
Yep.
All right, here's another team with very few holes to fill, you would think. That would be my second team I want to feature here. That would be the Detroit Lions. Okay. Well,
My Lions. They're my Lions.
yeah, that's right.
Yep.
And of course, they had a very good year last year, although they got beat in the playoffs by an NFC East team at home. So I didn't hear young Cody talking much about that in the aftermath of that loss by his team.
Well, I like the Commanders too. They're my Commanders, beat my Lions.
Flavor of the month, young Cody, climbing aboard
Yep.
that bandwagon. All right, so late first round. You tell me real quick about Tyleik Williams, defensive tackle from Ohio State, 330 something pounds.
So on a D line that had all 4 of the starters drafted fairly high, like in the top 5 rounds, Tyleik Williams was the most disruptive consistently. JFF, Jack Sawyer, those guys got a ton of the headlines, but I thought
JTT.
JTT, I'm sorry, JFF.
Okay, you're on JFF.
There you go. JTT and Jack Sawyer got a majority of like the headlines and the hype because they were good players or high recruits. Tyleik Williams was the guy who was most disruptive in that group over the last few years.
All right, and here's the thing. These guys, the reason I'm bringing up the Lions is the players that they draft, they just fit that Dan Campbell attitude, you know?
Yep. Mindset,
And I
style,
mean,
for sure.
it shows when you have a coach, and this is what I'm fired up about the Cowboys with Schottenheimer running this draft now and being so engaged in it, is that's the same thing has happened with Detroit. The head coach is a great communicator. He tells the scouts, his GM, Brad Holmes, they're on the same page as the type players that they're looking. And you just described one in their first round draft pick, Tyleik Williams. How about the 2 guards that they drafted in the second round? Tate Ratledge, who's described as a dirtbag at Georgia. That's what. And by the way, we're talking about building up that offensive line. The Eagles have done a great job of it with their top picks, and then Jordan Mailata coming out of nowhere, out of New Zealand rugby to emerge for them at left tackle for a decade. Well, the Lions have 3 first-round draft picks on their offensive line. In Taylor Decker at left tackle, Frank Ragnow at center, Penei Sewell at right tackle. They've got a 3rd rounder in Graham Glasgow at left guard, and now they had a hole where Kevin Zeitler played last year. He leaves in free agency, and they just fill that hole in the 2nd round with Tate Ratledge from Georgia. So, by the way, that could have been a move the Cowboys made, to your point, is, okay, how about if you didn't take Booker in the 1st round and you took a wide receiver, though Ted McMillan was gone, Abuka or Matthew Golden, you could have come back with Ratledge in the second round, but then you wouldn't have Ezra. But that's getting off point. All right.
Yep.
They then follow up, the Lions do, in the fifth round with Miles Frazier, another offensive guard from LSU who started 39 games at LSU. So they had a need on their offensive line. They got guys exactly that fit the mold there. Starting with Tyleik Williams on the defensive line in the first round, I love their sixth round pick, Ahmed Hassanin, a native of Cairo, Egypt, who was very productive at Boise State. Jason Witten, NFL, or rather college man of the year finalist. That guy, we my comment on him after looking at his tape leading up to the draft, I just put hell of a football player.
Yep.
Hassanin is, but you look at it, and this is where the Brad Holmes earns his money. If you look at the depth chart for the Lions on their defensive line, you've got DJ Reader in the last year of his contract. You've got Josh Paschal in the last year of his contract. So you draft Tyleik Williams a year ahead of time, okay, where you got Tyleik Williams for this year in a rotation with DJ Reader, learning the NFL. And then if Reader leaves in free agency next year, you've got your replacement already with a year's experience. Josh Paschal, okay, who was a second round draft pick in 2022, he becomes a free agent. And for a year, you got a guy like Hassanin, who is his understudy, and then he's in a position to be the starter when Paschal leaves a year from now. That's how you have to almost treat it like college football, where you've got these guys for 4 years and then you move on, and you a year in advance you have to be ready to go. And then you go get caught like the Cowboys have gotten caught at wide receiver, where, okay, now what do you do at wide receiver? Your number two receiver, which they've been dealing with for 15 years now. It seems like every 4 years after they wind up trading for a Brandon Cooks or Amari Cooper or Roy Williams going back 15 years ago. What are you going to do at wide receiver? Instead, you got to keep developing these. By the way, that's what Green Bay has done with the drafting of Matthew Golden. They had the one draft a couple of years ago where they drafted all these wide receivers and all these tight ends. And now those guys are about to become free agents. So you got to fortify those positions and be in a position where you don't have to pay your receiver $35 million a year.
A couple things about the Lions, Bill Jones. And again, I'm claiming the Lions. They are my Lions because I was the second one on the bandwagon behind Dan Campbell. We talk about Philly having no holes to fill. The Lions had one hole to fill. That was at guard, and they drafted two guys with that, two guards to take that, to figure out who's the best and solidify the offensive line. And same thing on the defensive line. Not a coincidence that 4 of their first 5 picks were in the trenches. And I think there's a big point to make on they have lost offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. Both of those guys got a ton of credit for the Lions' success. They're both gone. They're both head coaches now. And Dan Campbell was going, okay, we're going to go back to what I like to do to make sure that this is the type of team we're going to be going forward. Solidify the O-line, solidify the D-line. He knows if those two groups are good, the franchise is in good shape going forward.
Okay, and then, okay, so you talked about 4 of the 5. We've already talked about 4 of their top 5 picks.
Yep.
It's their other top 100 pick that I like the most. But first, before I get to him, I also love their 7th round pick, Dan Jackson, the safety from Georgia, who just fits that entire Dan Campbell, making the most of whatever ability you have. Here's a walk-on at Georgia who was there for 6 years, finally got an opportunity to start last year for Georgia, and he had 64 tackles, a couple of interceptions, and he was the heart and soul of that Georgia defense last year. Came up with huge plays in critical situations in big games late in the year. Who, by the way, is now 24 years old and actually, from a special teams standpoint, is going to be a core special teams guy for them. and might play there because he's the right kind of guy. He's a Dan Campbell kind of guy, like a Dan Skipper on their offensive line, who's probably going to play 10 years in the league because he understands what his role is, but he'll never make more than the veteran minimum, and yet he'll be a core member of that team. But all right, how about the third round wide receiver? And do you have the correct pronunciation to Slaw?
Tesla is what I heard.
So
Yeah.
Isaac TeSlaa, who was at
Yep.
Arkansas the last couple of years, did not put up great numbers at Arkansas. He put up great numbers at the combine, however, and he started his career. He's a Michigan native, and he started his career at Hillsdale College, who I thought was just an online school because I hear their ads all the time, but they do play football there. 6'3" and 5/8 inches, 214 pounds, ran a 4.43, 17 bench reps, 39 and a half vertical, 10.9 broad jump, 405 shuttle, 685 cone drill. Dane Brugler, not to call out Dane Brugler, had him as a 5th or 6th round pick. And Brad Holmes trades up from late in the 3rd round, basically the last pick of the 3rd round, to number 70 and gives up 2 third round draft picks next year to move up to take Isaac TeSlaa from Arkansas. And okay, Holmes said when you look at the past 2 or 3 drafts, including this one, it has not been the same depth of talent. Okay, so keep in mind now we're 70th pick in the draft. Okay, so this year, last year, the year before, you don't find an Ali McNeil in the 3rd round. You don't find an Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round. Those guys just aren't there as of recent, and that has to do with what's going on in college football. As players are staying in school longer, they got the extra COVID year, and they got NIL money. So if you're not a first-round draft pick, you're making more money in college football than you are your first 4 years in the NFL.
Yep.
Okay, so with the Lions holding the final pick in the 3rd round, number 102, Holmes was thinking, if we stay here, we're going to be dealing with a different level of player based on our board. Not on the 31 other boards, but based on our board. And so at that point, he said there's maybe only 2 or 3 players left in the draft graded on the same level as TeSlaa. Probably looking about 8 teams still looking for a wide receiver. And that's why he traded 2 future 3rd round picks to move up 32 spots to number 70. Obviously, it all starts with you got to have conviction on the player. And Holmes had conviction on TeSlaa, and he went up and got him. And I'm sitting there going, because I was thinking in the big green notebook, I've got a limited time, about the last month before the draft, before I can really dig in on these players. And so, Cody, I'm sitting there thinking, well, like you, well, the Cowboys are going to take a wide receiver in the 1st or 2nd round. They have to, okay? First, and so I didn't even look. So I'm going off Dane Brugler's The Beast, which is great stuff. I didn't even though I had the numbers on TeSlaa, I saw his stats at Arkansas, and I said, I don't got time for this. And so
Yeah.
I never really looked him up. But once I started studying the Lions draft, I looked him up and I'm going, I can't believe I didn't look at Jordy Nelson.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the Lions might have gotten Jordy Nelson in the 3rd round.
Well, this is how the draft is supposed to be, Bill Jones. When you don't have holes to fill, you can do stuff like this. You can find somebody you really like, and to your point, what they did on the defensive line, whether Jamison Williams is on his way out or whatever, like he's a replacement for one of these guys, because right now he's looking as probably their 4th or 5th wide receiver as a rookie, but he can come in and make an impact. And to the point of Dan Campbell, I think he's proven he deserves the benefit of the doubt. In the 1st round, they got Tyreek Williams. Most people had him projected as a 2nd rounder. Lions take him in the 1st. Most people had TeSlaa as a 4th or 5th rounder. They take him in the 3rd. Your guy, the safety from Georgia, Dan Jackson, he wasn't even invited to the combine. They take him as a pick, right? So it's just about, hey, we're going off our board. All these other projections, it doesn't really matter. We'll take a guy a round early if he's our kind of guy, and they deserve credit for that.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't know what grade they got, whatever, but it doesn't matter. Who cares what grades you're getting?
They consistently don't get good draft grades afterwards because they take Jahmyr Gibbs in the top 10, and then they come back and they take a
You got Jack
linebacker,
Campbell and
Jack
the
Campbell. Exactly.
linebacker at 18, and
You
these are
can't take a running back in the top 10.
right.
You can't take a linebacker in the
And,
top 20, and then
and
oh yeah,
now
great players.
and now all these other teams are they're using Jahmyr Gibbs as the example of, well, can this guy, like with the Cowboys, can Jaden Blue, does he get some Jahmyr Gibbs in him? Because we like that.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. Next one, Bill Jones should worry Cowboys fans because it's another NFC East team. First the Eagles, now the Giants. Really like what they did, adding a combination of size and athleticism. It started early on Thursday when they didn't succumb to the pressure of overdrafting a quarterback or trading out and missing on a great player. Instead, they stayed at number 3 overall and selected edge rusher Abdul Carter, a consensus blue chip prospect. I was at Carter's pro day at Penn State, was able to be around him a little bit. Feel like he's one of the rare athletes with a super high ceiling and a super high floor. Won't be like Micah Parsons good, but there's no doubt in my mind he'll have at least 7 or 8 sacks next year, and that'll kind of be his floor every year going forward, assuming he stays relatively healthy. By the way, the Giants have the best defensive line rotation in the league. Go take a look at that depth chart. Even further, more of a reason that the Cowboys need to shore up their interior right there. They weren't done in the first round either, Bill Jones, making a trade with the Texans to move up to 25 overall and select Ole Miss quarterback Jackson Dart. Thought this was a smart move. They didn't give up all that much to move up for someone who could be their franchise quarterback of the future, a second rounder and 2/3, relatively a small haul to get back up and take a first round quarterback. About a week before the draft, all those Giants and Ole Miss connections started leaking out that this kind of became the pick. You could tell the Giants were going in this direction. I really like his support system as well. They've got Russell Wilson. They got Jameis Winston. They got Brian Dable. They got Malik Neighbors. Obviously, they still need a few pieces, but it's a pretty good situation to come to for Dart. I'm also a fan of their next 4 picks, Bill Jones. Darius Alexander, D tackle from Toledo in the 3rd. They got Cam Scattaboo, the running back from Arizona State, in the 3rd as well. He's going to add a lot of physicality to an offense that needs it. How about this? Scattaboo on first down, second down. Then you got Tyrone Tracy on third down. That's actually pretty good. Marcus Bowe, and then I like him as one of their later picks. He's a favorite of Pro Football Focus, so I feel like he can add maybe a little depth on the offensive line, which they need. So I think if Carter and Dart can play, the Giants, they got their 2 cornerstone offensive and defensive players in the same round, in the same draft. And yes, like I said, they're still a few pieces away, but the Giants are much better than they were a week ago.
And let's hope all these teams are much better than they were a week ago. Right?
I think so.
Okay, so they'll still finish last in the NFC East, right?
Yes, but they won't be as far behind everybody else this year. And I don't know how many times the Cowboys have beat the Giants in recent years. Obviously, it's a lot.
Like all the time.
All the time, right. I'm going to go on record, Bill Jones. I'm going to say the Giants beat the Cowboys once this year.
Okay.
It's going to be closer. They narrowed the gap, the New York Football Giants.
Is Dak playing?
Yes. Dak's playing all 17
even
games.
with Dak playing. Okay, because I think he might be unbeaten against the Giants. I'm not sure. It's close to that.
I'm going to look that up. Go ahead with your next team.
Well, and speaking of quarterbacks, and Jackson Dart went in the first round of the Giants. And of course, the story of this draft was and why those TV ratings were so high was Shedeur going in the 5th round, as it turns out, second quarterback taken by the Cleveland Browns, who, by the way, I like Dylan Gabriel. And
in the 3rd round, did you like him in the 3rd round, Bill Jones?
if they've got conviction on him, I like him. If who do you think's going to start in Cleveland?
Joe Flacco.
Okay, after he throws 6 picks in the first couple of games, who's going to play after that?
He won't. I will say that. I would
Who's
say it depends on the point of the season. Joe Flacco is going to be the
okay,
starter.
after they're 0-4 to start the season, or 1-3, who's the next quarterback in?
My guess is Kenny Pickett, but not sure.
Okay, who gets on the field first amongst the rookies? Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders?
I say Shador Sanders.
Who gets on the field first in the preseason?
Dylan Gabriel.
Okay, so
Yep.
Shador's got to win that.
Yep.
Got to win that.
Yep.
So when they line up for OTAs,
Yeah.
or how about rookie minicamp? When they go out for rookie
Dylan
minicamp,
Gabriel.
Dylan Gabriel is the number one quarterback and Shador is the backup. And I think
Because he was the higher
that's
pick.
the way
Yeah.
to handle it, just to see how Shador handles that. You know,
Well, he was the higher draft pick. That's really where it starts. Whoever's the higher pick is higher on the depth chart to start rookie camp. By the way, update: Dak 13-2 against the Giants all time as a starter.
going back 9 years ago, 2016, when Dak Prescott was a fourth round draft pick of the Cowboys, when they lined up for at the start of training camp, really, but their last, let's say the mini camp practice, what was the depth chart for the Cowboys at the quarterback position? It was Tony Romo was the first teamer.
Yep.
Kellen Moore was the second. Who
Yep.
was the third team quarterback?
Showers or something?
Jameel Showers was the
Yes.
third team quarterback, and then Dak was fourth team. And by the end of training camp, Dak was the starter.
Okay, hold on. I looked at the game log. Dak lost his first 2 games against the Giants. He's won 13 straight against
There
the
you
Giants.
go. I knew
This
it
is
was
a
something
bold
like that.
prediction. The Giants win one against him this year.
Okay, so speaking of quarterbacks, I've got 4 quarterbacks. This is my third team here. It's the quarterback team. Okay. And specifically, 4 quarterbacks that were taken in the sixth and seventh rounds, very quickly here, that I think, as troubled as they are, that they went so late in the draft, I think when I look at it, they are in the perfect spots. Kyle McCord was the first of these 4 to be drafted early in the sixth round. He's at Philadelphia. Did Philadelphia need a backup quarterback?
Not really, kind of,
Don't get
sort of.
into
Who
Tanner
knows? We'll
McKee
see. Yep.
conversation, but Jay, here's the deal. Jalen Hurts, he's about to, when his next contract comes up, whenever his time comes up, he's going to be the great highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Or if they got somebody coming on behind them who's got some ability, okay? So there's an opportunity for Kyle McCord there to become Jalen Hurts' backup. Jalen gets hurt, he gets an opportunity to get on the field. But in the meantime, he can learn the game. He can learn the NFL. He can, okay? He's in a great spot.
And he's back home from the area.
There you go. There you
Yep.
go. All right. Will Howard was the next quarterback taken. Okay. He goes to Pittsburgh. What a great place for Will Howard. In fact, as people were talking about Pittsburgh needs a quarterback, I've thought all along Will Howard, big 6'4", 6'5", 225, 230-pound guy, he's made for Pittsburgh. Okay. And so you're probably going to sign Aaron Rodgers. We'll see what happens there. You got Mason Rudolph. You got him. And so it's a great opportunity for him to where the pressure's not on. Will Howard can be all that Will Howard can become in that Pittsburgh system. And at some point here in the next couple of years, Will Howard is going to get an opportunity to show that he can quarterback that team at Pittsburgh. Great opportunity for him.
Yep.
Riley Leonard, one of my favorite guys in this draft. Perfect place for him in Indianapolis. You got Anthony Richardson, who's already spit the bit the first couple of years in the league. They signed Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is a Duke guy. Riley Leonard was a Duke guy before transferring to Notre Dame. They got similar play style. So Daniel Jones is the guy, and Riley Leonard, a young guy, comes in there and he's working on developing his passing ability. He can actually provide something as far as even in a short yardage situation right off the bat if they wanted to make him active. But it's a tremendous opportunity for Riley Leonard. And then I'd say the same thing for the 7th round pick, Quinn Ewers, going 231 to Miami. In fact, when this whole process started, I thought Miami would be a great landing spot for Ewers. Now, obviously not in the 7th round, but and he's, you know, aside from the money he lost not going in the transfer portal, whatever, when you really look, peel it back, it's a great opportunity for Quinn Ewers there to get stronger in an NFL strength program, to learn the NFL, get his footwork where it needs to be and whatever, and to be able, but one of the biggest things is to get stronger and get his durability to a level physically that he can take the pounding, because I think the biggest knock on him is his lack of durability going all the way back to high school. And this is a great opportunity to take a deep breath and work on himself, get him in position, even if he's the third guy for a year with Zach Wilson there as well. And I think he is going to get an opportunity, whether it's in Miami or elsewhere, to become have a chance to become a starting quarterback in this league. And if he got thrown into a position, let's say he was drafted in the 2nd round, let's say if the Giants took him where they did Jackson Dart, he gets thrown into the mix, and he may not be ready for it at this point.
Miami is a good fit with Mike McDaniel too, because they don't ask a ton of the quarterback, right? Everything is that outside zone, play action, get it in the hands of all these guys.
Short passing game.
4-2, 4-3. Yeah, I agree. It is a good fit. And maybe Quinn becomes a superstar and then he carries the offense. But initially, the offense is more about the quarterback just getting the ball in the hands of the playmakers, and they got plenty of them.
And that is the strength that Quinn has shown in college, his ability to get the ball out quick, play fakes, that sort of thing. And the other thing to consider, and I'm sure Mike McDaniel, obviously he talked with Sark about Quinn, and Sark obviously coached Tua at Alabama, and he's coached Quinn at Texas. And so I think there's a great fit there as far as their play style. Why Mike McDaniel, I mean, it was a no-brainer for them to take him in the 7th round and see what they've got.
And one more thing, going to the Dolphins is actually a pretty good setup for players. They just had the NFLPA poll release, and the Dolphins is the #1 place for players voting as far as the support staff, everything that goes around playing football. The Dolphins is a really well-run franchise and treats their players really, really well as well.
So anyway, those 4 quarterbacks, I've got an eye on them going forward, because I think all 4 of those are going sometime in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, they're going to have an opportunity to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, and they got to put it out of their mind where they got drafted, and they've got a chance.
Like it. The final team on my list is the Jaguars, Bill Jones. And I want to quote part of a text from you, Mr. Jones, to help me illustrate what Jacksonville did this weekend. I haven't asked you about this, but I'm sure you'll be fine with it. Quote, "The draft is for taking the best and brightest. It's the one medium where you have multiple options to get the right kind of guys and form the heart of a team," unquote. That was from a Bill Jones text, and I think it was really well put. He's right, and guess what? The Jacksonville Jaguars did that, trading up from number 5 to number 2 to draft two-way superstar Travis Hunter. I mentioned Abdul Carter as a blue chip prospect. Well, Hunter was the only other guy in this draft universally recognized as can't miss. Plus, Hunter was born in West Palm Beach. He later moved to Atlanta. Guess what city is right in the middle of West Palm Beach and Atlanta? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's Jacksonville. So it's a perfect fit for there. He loves to fish. He can fish year-round in Florida. We know that'll make him happy. So it seems like a perfect pairing. So props to 34-year-old GM James Gladstone for making it happen and adding quite possibly the best and brightest prospect in the draft. I was also impressed with a couple of their other picks. Wyatt Milam in the 3rd was brilliant. He's a day 1 starter in my book. Bashal Tutin, Jack Kaiser, Jonah Monham, LaQuint Allen, all day 3 guys that I think will eventually contribute. So nice job by the Jags and their new regime, hoping to turn that team around. But I love when a team says, that's the guy we need. We're going to give up what we need to. And they went and got Travis Hunter. So shout out to them, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So, who is your early favorite to be the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year in the NFL?
It's a great question. I would have to look at it because I haven't had a chance yet.
It's an easy question. Travis Hunter will be the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year.
That would be amazing. I hope that happens.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah, no, I hope that happens.
It was sort of a rhetorical question. You don't have to give me a name.
I was going to say
Not
Ashton Genty for the Raiders is going to get a lot of carries. So my guess is he's going 1,500, 1,600, 1,700 total yards, or maybe Cam Ward. We'll see if he can turn Tennessee around.
Or maybe it'll be Riley Leonard. Why do you laugh?
I would be
for Riley Leonard right off the bat.
I would be shocked if he played a snap this year.
Okay. Clip and save that.
Okay.
Clip and save that. Okay.
I got it.
All right. Well, we went overtime, but it was well worth it. And man, don't you know, Babe Laufenberg is just exhausted about now on his elliptical as he listens to Jonesing for Football.
One of Babe's longest workouts of the year. We're approaching an hour now. Babe has, he's probably going super slow on the elliptical now. He's trying to make it through, trying to get to the end.
All right. Can't wait to see what you got up your sleeve for the next episode of Jonesing for Football. You don't have to commit to it right now, but I'm sure you've got some producer supreme as some way we're going to go and attack this offseason.
Haven't figured it out, but I'm going to formulate a game plan for the next few months here and the rest of this week. That's my plan.
All right. Very good. And in the meantime, enjoy the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs, baseball.
Rookie mini camp, Bill Jones. Rookie mini camp.
We got the Cowboys here. We got the Cowboys coming here on Thursday for a rookie mini camp. They're doing it quick. They're doing it right off the bat here. And then we got OTAs and training camp will be here before you know it. In the meantime, thanks for joining us here for Jonesing
for Football. Call me, babe.